Ladies and gentlemen, theys and gamers, welcome to Creme de la Creator, the podcast that celebrates remarkable content creators and their communities. My name is Grant Alexander. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Jake Lane, and someone very special. Mystery guest, would you care to introduce yourself?
Hello, everybody. This is Jerik Centeno.
He's here.
Made it.
We've talked about him so much on the show. He's finally here. Jerik, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thank you, Jake. Thank you, Grant, for having me.
Jake, how are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. It's a bit of a stressful drive home, but we made it in time for this episode. So
yeah, it was touch and go there. I was texting you guys back and forth.
Yeah, we're gonna make it.
We're gonna make it. We're not gonna make it.
We made it. What's the matter? Never taken a shortcut before. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing okay. It's been a bit of a week. I left one job today and I'm starting one job tomorrow. So I'm on a completely new computer. I'm learning how to use a MacBook for the first time in 6 years. If this recording goes skew-whiff, we know why. It's Jerik's fault.
Actually, in fairness, I'm sure of all guests we could have on, if it goes skew-whiff, that's surely one person we could go, can I email you this? Can you sort this out, please? Put the fire...
I'm sorry, is that a slight on my skills, Jake? Would you like to edit the episode?
No, I'm not. You were the one that said it could go skew-whiff. I'm just saying. You said it could go wrong. If it does go wrong, we've got someone that can help us out.
I know exactly what you're saying. No, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Look, if I was editing it, you'd need to turn a fire hose on it every time you got the final cut before you even started listening to it.
Jake, so. You're being really unprofessional in front of our guest.
I'm going to sit here and be quiet now.
Well, Jake sulks. Jerik, would you like to introduce yourself and kind of tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, so my name is Jerik Centeno. I am located in Los Angeles, California. I'm an audio engineer and music producer and musician. I produce, edit, and also run the social media for Late in Night with Brian Wecht. You might also know me from working with Ninja Sex Party's producer, Jim Roach, and I've been working with Jim for a little while now.
Awesome. Just to throw you straight into the deep end and kind of give this kind of a job interview style vibe, tell us about your career so far and how do you feel it qualifies you to be on this podcast?
Yeah, so my career is I have been a professional audio engineer since 2016. I went to school. I have my bachelor degree in audio production, and I have been doing studio and live production work since 2016. I've worked in live sound for about 3 years and in the studio in between. So I guess that qualifies me to be on this podcast.
I mean, I asked you that question in kind of jest and to kind of put you on the spot and make you feel uncomfortable.
That totally made me feel uncomfortable.
To be fair, I had an answer lined up in your defense anyway, Jerik. I was going to say, if I'm here, then... there's your answer. Well, that dude's here, so I'm more qualified than he is.
Oh, yeah, Jake is wholly unqualified. Actually, no, that we're 11 episodes in. I think that you are getting qualified.
Yeah, I've moved up a reading band from the red books to the yellow books and all that kind of thing, so...
You can tell he's a teacher at heart. Jerik, so where did your kind of journey with music start from a young age? Talk us through that.
Yeah, so... I was in band from the 6th grade till I was a senior in high school. And I've always looked up to my sister as a kid. And she was in band in the same thing from the 6th grade till high school, till she graduated. And so I played the alto saxophone from the 6th grade to high school. And in high school, probably around my sophomore, junior year, I had a band with some of my best friends that we actually started the band. It was called the Buddy System. And we started it in about the 8th or 9th grade. And then later in high school, about sophomore, junior year or senior year, we recorded our first little EP. And all in high school, I was also involved with the worship band at church. So I would play either guitar or bass. But then I realized that there's this giant mixing console at our church. I'm like, holy shit, what the fuck does this do? And I thought it was I just thought it looked cool. Mm-hmm. And so after after doing sound there for a little bit, playing in my worship band, playing with my friends, making this EP, all my English essays in high school were about audio engineering. So my teacher would give us prompts like, let's do like a versus essay. So I remember one of my essays being a solid state amps versus tube amp essay.
Oh,
and then
I'd love to read that.
I should find.
That's exactly my kind of deal.
And then I did another essay that was like, what do you want to be? Or like, career path, because it was like our senior year. So we had to really start thinking about our career paths. And I did a profile on audio engineers, and I interviewed one of my friends who was already kind of like dabbling in audio engineering. One of the funniest facts that I remember from that is I wrote that audio engineers' salaries are $100,000 a year. And I am nowhere near that right now. So that was a fucking huge lie. I don't know where the fuck I found that detail.
That was your vision board. you were subconsciously putting together.
I know.
It's one of those things you like kind of tell them, yeah, you want to do this, guys. It's like the guy selling you a dream, isn't it? In a swish suit.
Like a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. You see those dollar signs light up.
That sounds quite similar to kind of my upbringing around audio and kind of seeing a giant mixing desk and go, oh, that's... Mm-hmm. I have no idea what 3/4 of this does, but I love the power that sitting behind this desk kind of gives me. And we were lucky enough at school, Jake and I, we went to a school that became a performing arts school while we were there. And we had a huge amount of investment in the music department and the theatre department, and both got a lovely recording studio and 2 big Allen and Heath desks. And yeah, I sat behind that and just learnt mic placements for theatre and kind of enjoyed the power that being, no, I don't need to listen to you theatre kids anymore. Just like turning channels on and off. Obviously not in live, only in rehearsals, because I'm not a monster.
Theater people are absolutely on another level that I don't have any power to get on that level, whatever that level is. I used to, like right before I moved to Los Angeles, I lived in San Diego from 2013. And after I graduated college, I worked at SeaWorld, and I did live sound there. Everybody has their own opinions on SeaWorld, so
sure.
Leave it at that. But a lot of the people who worked at SeaWorld were theater people.
I can imagine, actually, yeah.
Yeah, but no, they're actually like great people. It's just their energy levels were...
It's always at an 11.
Yes, and as an audio engineer... Typical audio engineer, live sound audio engineer, energy levels are at like a 2. So
what would you say, in your professional opinion, is kind of an essential setup for learning how to be an audio producer?
So you should first start out with getting a good DAW. I don't know, people say DAW, DAW. It stands for Digital Audio Workstation. Mm-hmm. You should absolutely start there, because that is kind of like your gateway into, production, recording, mixing. If you want to get into production, there are like different DAWs that tailor towards different things. So like Ableton and Logic, those are kind of very producer-friendly DAWs, and kind of what they're known for is, production. Versus like Pro Tools, it's kind of more for recording, mixing, editing. So I would really start there. That's kind of like the biggest thing. People are still recording to tape, but that is so limiting to your creativity, because, you need to go to a studio, you need to hire an audio engineer. You can't just do it on your own. You can do it on your own with tape, but it's much more easier to do it if you have like a DAW and a good computer. I think that's the other big thing too, is have a decent computer and a DAW, because with a good DAW, you can like literally just plug in you can even use your keyboard. It's called musical typing. You can play piano notes on it and program, synth sounds and drum beats just from your keyboard. So that's literally where I would start there. And then, building up to it, getting like an audio interface, and then getting a good microphone, getting good speakers. So, but really I would start there as, get your good computer and get a good DAW, because even if you just get like a good DAW like Logic or Ableton, they already give you like thousands and thousands of free things with that program. Like they'll give you thousands of drum samples and thousands of synthesizer sounds and thousands of, fucking presets. So that's it. That's where I would start with my journey.
Excellent. And in terms of getting kind of experience, I know you mentioned that you've worked a lot with Jim Roach. Is that something you think is quite a standard entry into working on bigger projects, kind of finding someone to kind of mentor and shadow or work alongside?
I think yes. I mean, if you can get somebody who will, take you in, like how I was fortunate to be with Jim, I'm fortunate to be with Jim, then by all means. But I think and this is kind of a frank statement, but I think you really need to have your chops ready to go and, show that you are worth this job, because it's such a high level stakes of what you're doing.
Yeah.
And there's no time for bullshit and no time for learning. Jim Roach told me, he was like, I didn't know if I was going to keep you or if I was going to fire you after a week, because
Wow. Fair play.
No. What did you do?
Well, I didn't know Jim Roach. When I first moved to Los Angeles, I started working for this musician, Jimmy Laval. He is widely known for his musical project / band, The Album Leaf.
Okay.
When I moved here, I asked him, I was like, hey man, do you need an assistant? And I knew him because I had toured with his band, because my friends were his opening band and I was my friend's live sound engineer. So
nice.
When I moved to LA, I was like, hey Jimmy, do you need an assistant? And he's like, yeah, actually. And he was like, oh, also my friend Jim Roach wants to hire you. And I was like, fuck it, yeah, I need work. And then I met Jim like when I moved here, and he didn't know anything that I did. He just had like a fucking resume and my website.
Yeah.
And then probably like a year later or like 6 months later, he like told me, he's like, dude, I didn't know if I was gonna keep you or fire you after a week, because he had no idea who I was or what I could do. So yes, if you can find somebody to, mentor you and like, I think the big word that you said, Grant, is working alongside. Yeah. Because mentoring means kind of, they're showing you everything, you kind of like holding your hand. But working alongside is like you're ready to go. You know what the fuck you're doing. You know what to do. And you're only adding to that project. Whereas like mentoring, interning, the way I look at it is, the producer or the main engineer is kind of, still showing you the ropes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, if I recommend, trying to figure out as much as you can, a lot of people are kind of against the go to school for it. But I went to school for audio engineering and, I have my bachelor degree. I sound like Brian. I have a PhD.
No, I have a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, I have a bachelor's in audio. But yeah, that's from going to school and, being professional since 2016 until I moved here. I had all that time to build up my chops. Whereas, if you're really starting from like ground zero and then trying to find a mentor, then it's kind of a language barrier still, because, you don't know the programs. You don't really know what kind of microphones do what kind of microphones they are. There's so much basic things that you kind of need to learn before you kind of get into that pool of, doing the work already. Yeah.
Would you say that's one of the benefits as well of going to learn it as a subject, is that you're getting the basic knowledge in place and then you've got the time then and the basic knowledge to go and do all that exploration. As you were saying, you need to know where you're at as soon as you kind of hit the ground. You need to do that running. You need to be decent. We haven't got the time. This production cannot afford to carry someone.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, back in the quote unquote olden days of recording, there were apprenticeships, there were mentorships that did that. Kids came in, they didn't know shit about recording, but it's it's just kind of like times have changed. Back then they were recording to analog tape versus like, now we're all on computers and hard drives. And so analog tape, that's kind of a thing where you really kind of learn in the studio versus like computer Pro Tools shit, DAW shit. Mm-hmm. That's kind of shit you kind of need to know already.
That's kind of the same for photography.
Right.
Like with digital, you have a decent DSLR or your phone and Photoshop, teach yourself Photoshop, and you can be kind of half decent around it. But if you want to study film photography, you need an access to a darkroom, you need to learn the different processing techniques, and it becomes a much more kind of visceral, tactile kind of learning experience. Would you say that's kind of the same?
Yeah, I definitely think it's the same.
Another question for you. If you could go back to any project for a do-over, what would it be and why?
Yes, I already know the answer to this because I constantly think about this a lot of the times. So there are 2 projects that I wish I could go back to. The first one is my friend Max's band. It's called the Chili Banditos.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of this like punky, indie punk sounding band. And that's kind of the music I want to work on now, is kind of like, indie rock and like super indie punk.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that, I think, right when I was graduating college. And, my chops are still being built up. That whole record, I kind of was running like a chicken without a head. So it's that. The album is called Slam Drunk by the Chili Banditos.
That's a great name.
My friend Max is like one of the best musicians and songwriters ever. And that was a band kind of based around like Southern California lifestyle and like Mexican food in a nutshell. And the second record I wish I could go back and do is Max's cousin's band. Max's cousin is Clay, and his band is called the 6 Sevens. And it's just straight up great indie rock, guitar based, drums, bass guitar, vocals, basic indie rock.
Nice.
Super vibey, just really fun music. We did that in the same place that we recorded Max's album, which it was in Clay's back house. They had this like shed at their house, and we did both records there. And it definitely has like a sound to it, but I just feel like, I just want to go back and redo those.
Would you think it's more of is it kind of a complete redo, or is it adjustments?
I think it's a complete redo, just because maybe not so much the 6 Sevens album. I just want to go back because I know there are some recording things that I would have done better. Mm-hmm. But with like the Chili Banditos album, my mixing was like stupid. It wasn't stupid, but you could tell I was like still learning.
Yeah.
And my drum recording was just very bad. Maybe not very bad, but again, sounds like I was still learning.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's
What
cool.
what about you? What projects would you guys go back and do?
Oh wow.
Episode 1.
I was literally just about to say episode. No,
2.
actually, no, that's not fair. Episode 2. Episode 2 sounded like absolute garbage.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, episode 2 for sure.
That was the day before I turned the whole office around and started putting up soundproofing. And I'm so glad. I'd ordered it from Amazon already, and I was like, "Do we wait to record?" And I was like, "No. If I wait to record, I'm just going to be a perfectionist." And because this one thing I've really had to get over, like making this week to week, is like perfection isn't the thing to be aiming for. It's just make sure the content is good, make sure the guests are good. So that's why we're here. So it's not necessarily like you could spend ages just in pre-production putting together the perfect recording setup, and like that's not the thing to focus on necessarily. But that's coming from both an audio production and I'm a host of the show kind of dichotomy. So Jake, I don't know, what about you?
No, I definitely think episode 2. I think episode 2 it was a really quite heavy episode as well, didn't it? And
that was my fault.
No, it's not. I didn't say it was fault. I think it was that time, wasn't it? Because we'd just gone into that lockdown, and I think the sound quality on top of the fact that that episode didn't get done justice because of that. I think. Yeah.
I think that might get a do-over at some point.
Yeah, we could revisit. Who knows? Yeah. I think in terms of other things, generally speaking, to be fair, I've not had. This is the first actual sort of project I've been involved with in terms of any kind of production outside of the Greek local village pantomime. That's about the extent of...
like we say, Jake is very much not qualified for this.
Yeah, I mean...
But that's kind of what I like about it, because I'm coming from a perspective where I view creators and their projects from a technical standpoint. I don't want someone else on the show kind of bouncing off of me that has that same vibe. Jake's got a more open look at the work for what it is kind of approach.
A layman's look is literally when I see things. It's one of the things actually as our friendship's gone on over the years. The conversations we've had about like movies and things like that and music, and something that I've grown to appreciate is actually appreciating the art form for what it is, as opposed to just to kind of look at it and go, oh, that looks cool.
Just the output.
Yeah, and it's the same, especially with movies. And I will say, you have gone a long way to encouraging me to be more critical about a film, not in that sense of criticism, but in the sense of how I see it, as opposed to, that's not through you saying, you must do this, or I'm gonna beat you around the head with a stick.
You mean toxic fandoms?
Oh yeah, it's more the conversations we've had has kind of provoked thoughts in my mind, and think actually when people say, oh, that film sucked, it's like, okay, well, I had this very conversation with someone earlier about Batman. Yes, I'm segueing back into Batman. It happens.
Sorry, Jake, you don't talk about Batman. This is completely left field with you.
But the dispute was about talking about Christian Bale's Batman and how they didn't like Ben Affleck's Batman. And I said, did you really not like Ben Affleck's Batman, or did you just not like the film he was in? Because those are two different things. And
that's very media literate of you, Jake.
This is it. And it's things like that that's made me think about it. Actually, you know what? I actually really like Ben Affleck's Batman, and I think he's one of the better ones. However, that is a very unpopular opinion due to the fact that the Justice League was a skip fire that had been put out with a crowbar at times. But we hope for better with the Snyder Cut. But anyway, I digress. The point being, it's kind of made me look at things in a more open-minded, more critical approach. So, and being involved in this, it's been, let's say we're recording episode 11 now. We spent probably, 3 or 4 weeks in the lead up to Christmas and before that, setting things in order. I'm sat in my wardrobe recording booth with acoustic foam that I purchased from a delegate that I trained at work for the bottle of wine. My recently purchased mic boom arm because my makeshift lamp one completely gave up the ghost.
We're moving up in the world.
Do you know what I mean? For me, it's about the process. And I think, it's something I've not got any clue on before.
Yeah.
And I'm really enjoying the process of learning new things, developing my knowledge and understanding, and kind of carrying that forward. So
I mean, to sum up, this show has gone against everything that Jerik has just said about what you should do.
No, because you've been there. That's what I'm saying. Like you're the one that's carried it forward, and I'm the one that's. Can I hop on for the ride? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's the fun of the process, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, probably got a bad back from carrying me when it comes to getting something as simple as getting Discord to work.
Oh, if we're talking about being carried, then we've got to circle back to our guest, because Jerik, you were instrumental in those first few episodes. You gave some absolutely incredible feedback, completely from the goodness of your heart, unless there's an invoice on the way.
Yeah, I am more than happy to have helped with those ones. It's great anytime I can instill some of my knowledge to somebody. I'm more than happy to help in any capacity, especially since Brian and Leighton love you guys so much. So
no, we really appreciate that, and shout out to those guys as well, because there was like a Q&A episode that those guys did, and I just hounded them with questions about podcasting, and they were like, just do it.
Yeah.
And then we just did it.
Yeah.
And here we are, 11 weeks later.
It's awesome. I think it's quite nice actually to have you on, Jerik, and be talking about especially the do-over question, and mentioning our earlier episodes. It's just kind of, there's something quite fitting about it to come this far and be like, actually, you've been a big part of behind the scenes. So thank you for the help you've given us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think there's something to say about, going back and redoing things and perfectionism and, just being, kind of being not knowing what's going on and just being there for the ride. Part of me really wants to go back and redo things, but this is so cliche. A big portion of me says that that's how I got to where I am.
Yeah, it tells its own story.
Yeah,
exactly. If I didn't make these okay records, which I still love, I don't think I would have opened my eyes to, the things that could have been better. And I think it goes back to like the whole thing you said, Grant, about perfectionism. You know, I don't think you should always strive for perfectionism because sometimes that kind of just eats away at, you know, the artistry of things. And it kind of touches base on kind of where you're coming from, Jake, is that, you know, you're kind of just along for the ride, you know. One recording secret I will give about NSP is on the latest album, The Prophecy, Wondering Tonight was Danny's like first vocal demo take. And you know, I think they tried recording it or like redoing it.
Yeah.
But it just didn't stick. Jim just like felt that take that Dan laid down for production, just the writing session that they had, he's like, that's it. We recorded it a couple more times and it just didn't work. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, there is merit to, you know, just the first blossom of inspiration and not being so attached to perfectionism.
That's a really cool story. I like that. Got another question for you.
Sure.
If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing? Vague ass question. No, you can apply that to this recording or you can apply that to life in general. Your choice.
I feel like I always think about that when it comes to life. I know what I wanted to be when I was a kid. There were like a couple things. The first one I ever wanted to be was a scientist. That
Okay.
I fucking hate science now. Like, in the sense that I never did well at it in school. Science is very important. Don't get me wrong. But I can't do it.
Don't let Brian hear you say that.
Oh, I know. I wanted to be a scientist. That never worked out. Then I wanted to be a professional tennis player. Then I realized
How did that go?
I played tennis from the 3rd grade till I was in high school, and I played competitively as a kid. I could just never get into that like next bracket of being good. So there was that, and then I think one of my early high school dreams was to be like a professional saxophone player, a saxophonist.
Saxophonist. Oh. I mean, just for the title alone.
Like, I remember writing it was like a 10-year or 5-year letter to myself when I was like a freshman or sophomore in high school. I was like, you still better be playing the saxophone, and you should have played at Carnegie Hall by now. And
and do you still play the saxophone?
I don't, unfortunately. Every time Brian whips it out, I whip out mine. That kind of sounds weird, but
no, we'll clip it. Don't worry, it's out of context.
Every time he takes out a saxophone, I take mine out, and then mine just doesn't work anymore. I need to take it to the luthier. But no, I don't play. So if I weren't an audio engineer and music producer, I'd probably, be playing the saxophone at Carnegie Hall.
Nice.
What about you guys? What would you guys be doing if you weren't doing what you're doing?
Oh, so he keeps turning these questions on us, and I've got no answers prepared.
To be honest, I could probably answer your question if you weren't doing what you're doing. If you weren't doing what you're doing, you'd be doing what you were doing today instead of what you're doing tomorrow. Oh,
God. Mind twister.
That sounds incredibly deep, but he actually knows that I'm in between jobs as of this evening. And he's absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably be in creative media, which is kind of what I do. 5-year-old me definitely wanted to be a paleontologist. And then from about 15, it was music, film, photography, all of that good stuff. So yeah, kind of ended up doing what I like, which is very fortunate. I'm very grateful. Jake, what about you?
5-year-old me, hand on heart, honest answer. My auntie asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up when I was 5, and my response was a man. So,
and how's that going for you, Jake?
Still working on it. Working on it. I mean, I'm not sure really. I've been through various different sort of careers really. It's always kind of led me back to working in some form of education or other.
He's a good teacher.
I guess.
What do you teach, Jake?
At the moment, I work for a telecoms company, so I train telecoms engineers in like fiber network telecommunications, basically. But I've done a lot of sports coaching and kind of gone down. That was my previous education background and sort of schools, phys ed and stuff like that. So.
Oh, cool. Do you teach rugby? Because I know on one of the episodes you were talking about rugby.
Yeah, I don't. I used to at primary school level. But in terms of recreationally, weekly, I play rugby but teach football. I think if I wasn't doing what I was, I guess I probably would still be involved in some sort of sports coaching of some form.
Yeah, of course you would.
It depends, because it was very difficult to do that in Cornwall and make a good living from it because of the nature of being quite secluded. There's no professional sports teams down there.
No, we are right in the middle of nowhere.
Literally, like the schools don't have a lot of funding for that sort of stuff, as much as it was greatly received. The parents loved it, the kids loved it, the teachers loved it. But if the funding's not there, they can't pay you to carry on doing it. So I think if I'd stayed in Cornwall, I'd probably be doing something very, very different, if I'm honest. I don't know what that is, but I don't think I'd be doing what I am.
But you moved to the big city.
I did, moved up to the big smoke, and... But yeah.
Hey, but you got me super fast fibre optic broadband as soon as I moved into this house, which I was very grateful about you helping me with.
That is true. So it's who you know.
I should give Brian some internet advice. God, yeah.
Is Brian still struggling with his, is it 400-yard Ethernet cable that he's got running through his house?
I can just imagine that thing. It's just the funniest fucking thing in my mind.
That's great.
Yeah, but I think he has internet problems, as we all do. Real quick, Jake, are you recording? Because it doesn't... I don't know. I'm looking at Zencaster right now.
I can see some waveforms.
Okay, because I can't see waveforms on Jake on my end, so...
Okay. He's recording locally as well. I've taught him how to use basic rudimentary tools.
A teacher becomes a student.
Just want to make sure.
Well, Jerik, you are definitely recording, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Because there is no excuse for you.
I'm recording.
Not being funny.
I'm absolutely recording. Don't get me wrong.
I got a red flashing dot on Zencaster, and do you know what the worst part is? When you said, "Are you recording?" I sat there in silence, watching the flat line going, "Is this recording?" Before realising I had to make noise for it to actually pick anything up.
Oh, that's outstanding. I'm leaving all of this in. This is gold.
Oh my gosh, that's so good.
Before we derail ourselves anymore, I have one more question for you, Jerik, and that is, what is it about a band or artist that kind of grabs your attention and really makes you want to work with them, or really gets you obsessed with their music?
I feel like the kind of music that I like is very arrangement centric, in the sense that, it's not very flat.
Okay.
That, the whole song isn't playing the same four chords. Literally, the whole song isn't playing the same four chords, because I've heard songs like that. Where it's the same drum beat over and over again. So, I mean, like a great example, honestly, is like NSP. I'm fortunate to have been thrown into that world.
Yeah, that is varied, to say the least.
Yeah, and their arrangements are ridiculously amazing. So I think the music kind of just has to be very, has to go places. It can't be flat. Don't get me wrong. I love, soft indie rock that kind of just stays put. And a lot of R&B, honestly, kind of just stays put. But with those kinds of music, they have to really be a vibe, in the sense that they have to, be really chill, or they have to, kind of have some like bump to them. A lot of like R&B and soft indie rock I like to listen to. I like to classify as, will I like to listen to this on a Saturday afternoon? So that's kind of like more of the vibey kind of slow stuff. And if it's kind of like, like repetitive and, the same chords over and over again, then the lyrics have to really speak to me. I'm one of the people who, I don't give a shit about your lyrics until I give a shit about your music. It's just something in my brain that's wired that way, that, Taylor Swift, she says some of the most like prophetic stuff ever, but just the music, I'm like, I can't get behind it. Or at least like in her like earlier, like very pop records.
Yeah.
And some of like the big, like very contemporary pop artists like John Legend. I don't know. He's like just the first example I thought of.
I'm getting flashbacks to filming weddings and having All of You be the song that I've edited to more than any other song.
First dance song?
Yeah. It's literally, I'll edit to your first dance song. What's your first dance song? It's John Legend, All of You. It's like, is it? I can now do that without listening to it. Like, I know how long the measures are, and I can cut on the beat without listening to it.
See, if it was the 90s, you'd have been holding a little handheld tape recorder and listening to Endless Love over and over again.
You're absolutely right, and that does make me feel much better about myself.
But yeah, oftentimes I just don't give a shit about lyrics until something in the music catches me. Either like it's a cool guitar riff or, you know, a cool drum beat that isn't playing the same bullshit that I heard the last song. If I ever hear a song that's in like 3/4 or 6/8 and it's playing that fucking waltzy dance beat, you know it when you hear it. My brain just instantly goes away. I just shut off mentally. I'm like,
That's fair enough.
exactly.
Oh, this is cool. Oh, no, you ruined it for everyone. You don't get nice things anymore.
Not that we're critics of people's work, or we
Yeah.
try not to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's Ezra Koenig from Vampire Weekend, you know, said there's no such thing as bad music, you know, because there's something for everybody out there. And he talked about during like the mid 2010s, like early like mid 2000s or late mid 2000s, there was this band called Broken Side. They were kind of this like screamo rap band, and
Okay.
I can guarantee like a lot of people didn't like them, but to Ezra's point, he was saying that there are some people who like that band genuinely, and there is no such thing as bad music. It's just not for you. And I think I learned that more the more I work with Brian and Leighton. Is that
Yeah, I was going to say that's a mantra of his, isn't it? He won't say he doesn't like something. He'll say that it's not for him now.
exactly.
I mean, from an embarrassing point of view, 15-year-old me really liked Kid Rock and really liked Hollywood Undead. Now, you know, I had some questionable judgments, made some questionable decisions, but
Kid Rock is a funny one. Gosh, like that guy is like on the deep end. He's on the far, far, far right.
yeah. And that's kind of now maybe as I grow up and kind of are more aware of the creators themselves, as evidenced by the show, it kind of has a bearing on my opinion of their content.
Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I was reading a Twitter thread the other day, and they were talking about how some people's argument is, yeah, you can appreciate the art and still think that they're an arsehole. And it's like, well,
Oh, yeah.
you can, but equally, just because you can do that, it doesn't mean other people can, because artists put a lot of themselves into their stuff.
You're absolutely right. And I mean, the whole theory within film criticism is death of the author, and how much you know, whether you like Quentin Tarantino as a person and whether you just like his media or neither, or there's crossover because the person does influence the art. But I think it's a totally subjective thing to come down on.
And it's the same in a sporting domain.
Yeah.
The Australian rugby player Israel Folau, you know, at the time one of the best players in the world, who was fired from his Rugby Australia contract for posting something that was homophobic. And there was debate of, yes, but he's allowed to have his own views, which is correct. However, when he signed a contract, the contract was that he can't post things that could cause potential harm to others, and he had previously been warned about it, so he was stripped of his contract. And
I mean, that's exactly the same as the Gina Carano thing with The Mandalorian and Disney. It doesn't matter what your opinion is, you are under contract not to say anything harmful.
Yeah.
And if you breach contract, you're going to lose it. Who knew that Kid Rock would take us down such a rabbit hole of conversation?
I mean, that's genuinely one of my favourite things about this pod, is that we can go from Kid Rock to really deep conversation, which I don't think has happened very often throughout time, that people have started on Kid Rock.
To be honest, starting at Kid Rock doesn't get you most places. You know, it's not very often it gets you very much further.
Another funny thing that's been going on in the States is how all these like extreme right-wing musicians, maybe not even extreme, but like, you know, musicians with right-wing ideas and beliefs have been kind of like coming out, and then all these like extreme right people are like starting to claim them now, and they're starting to claim the funniest fucking people ever. One of the funniest ones is this kind of like lo-fi indie artist. His name is Ariel Pink. Do you guys know the whole story behind Ariel Pink?
I don't know. Please enlighten us.
So he's just kind of like this like fuzzy sounding indie artist, you know, just like very whatever. And on the January 5th or January 6th insurrection, He wasn't at the insurrection, but he was at the rally that Trump gave the speech at.
Sure.
And so like everybody started finding out, and everybody started, whatever, canceling him. And all these extreme right people come out and are starting to like defend him. And I'm like, okay, so now you guys have to claim him, and now you really have to listen to his ridiculous
You've really
music.
doubled down on that.
Yes.
I think it's about time we moved on to some honourable mentions. What does everybody think?
Sure. That sounds great.
Jerik, would you like to go first?
Yeah. I will shout out my friend's YouTube channel. It is called Alex Rainbird Music. They just hit their 1 millionth subscriber.
Awesome.
Like within the past 2 weeks or a week. Alex Rainbird Music is a YouTube channel / playlisting community or channel that you can come to find all sorts of indie-based music. So, kind of folky stuff, poppy stuff, really laid-back acoustic, piano stuff. And I think the biggest thing that they do is, they're sharing mainly independent artists from around the globe.
Yeah.
There are, I think the only big band recently that was on their channel was the 1975. But other than that, 99% are smaller or independent artists. Alex Rainbird Music is run by my friends Alex Rainbird and Beth Patterson. They're from Southampton. They've been doing this for so long now. I emailed Alex in 2015, and I met him and Beth in person when they came to LA in about 2017. That's when I met them for the first time. And Alex has been doing this since he was in uni in 2011, 2012. And he's been doing this since, and just kind of building this audience nonstop. And now they've fucking reached 1 million subscribers on YouTube, which is
what an amazing milestone. That's so cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, just the two of them. And I think what's crazy too is they're my age and mid to early 20s.
Yeah.
And this started out as a passion project for Alex. He was just sharing good indie music that he loved. So shout out to those guys.
Jake, do you want to give us your honourable mention?
So this week's honourable mention is somebody that you do know, Grant.
Oh, okay.
So this week's honourable mention is a Bristol-based drum and bass DJ who originally is an alumnus of Flight 28 from Mullion School.
Is he now?
He is. And this person is Sean Barber.
No.
Yeah, so his Subtle Element is his name.
He was in our year at school.
Yeah.
That's dope.
Yeah, you must remember him. Really tall ginger fella.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah. So he, Subtle Element is obviously his DJ name. And yeah, he's been in Bristol for a few years now, actually. I was in the same tutor group as him, and I can always remember him saying at school that he wanted to be a DJ. So it's what he wanted to do when he grew up.
Nice.
And, at school, you kind of all right, okay, people say what they say, but yeah, fair play to him. He's pursued it. He's, he been mixing his own stuff, and he's been out, he was saying he's been out to Munich and stuff like that, been gigging out there. He had loads of stuff lined up last year, but obviously in came the big Rona, and that was that. I'm going to send you a link. I mean, obviously drum and bass might not be your thing, but I get a particular vibe when I first heard it. I was like,
I'm going to say I don't know what it's like because I'm completely illiterate when it comes to drum and bass.
Yeah.
Same.
Well, I kind of the first time I heard his music, I was like, do you know what? That's reminds me of playing Gran Turismo.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
And you just kind of vibe to it, whilst you're playing it. And I say he's got obviously all the links will be in. I put his SoundCloud and his Spotify and stuff in the description.
Yeah, great.
But yeah, no, it was awesome. I had a good catch up with him the other day, and yeah, hopefully when we can get back to some sort of normality, we hope to have a proper catch up and get along to a couple of gigs.
Absolutely.
I'm sure at some point, if I ask, potentially in the future, he might fancy being a guest on the show and explain his journey.
That sounds great. I've literally not spoken to the guy in 10 years. That's really cool.
So yeah, Subtle Element is his page. Obviously all the links will be in the description, and we shall hopefully be able to get him on the show sometime soon.
No, sounds fantastic. Good find.
Who have you brought to the table this week for an honourable mention?
Thank you for asking, Jake. This week, I've gone with a creator who I actually discovered through the Late at Night with Brian Wecht Discord community. So there is a channel on that Discord server for everybody sharing their own work. I use it to promote this podcast. Everyone there is a huge supporter. So I thought I'd share the love back. So this week's honourable mention is a musician and singer-songwriter called SalvaTorchic. Well, she has been sharing her content. She does vocals and ukulele, kind of very chilled out Sunday morning listening. She's released an EP last year and it was absolutely fantastic, really blew me away. I'll share with you a YouTubular clip.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. And for people talking about the Late at Night Discord, I have no idea what's going on because I have not tapped into that. Which
you should really, if you can. It's a crazy community.
I have never even been on Discord in my life. Ever.
Really?
Yeah, I honestly don't know. I feel like I get a vibe of what it is, but I don't know what it is.
The Late at Night Discord is it's a chaotic mess of people, but there's some talented sons of bitches on there. So it's a good resource. It's how I met Nebula of Whooper and Nebula's Nerdtastic Galaxy.
Oh, okay.
A fellow podcaster and fan of the show. So yeah, I've just dropped a link to SalvaTorchic's YouTube. And her EP is available on Bandcamp at the moment. And I threw a few quid in and was listening to it over the weekend and was really, really loving it. Jake, have you managed to figure out the link?
Yeah, I've dived straight into a song called The Killing Joke. No guesses as to why it drew me to that. But that is very, very nice.
This is excellent. See, it's stuff like this that reminds me of when I first was getting into indie rock music. It just has that certain vibe, It kind of sounds like it was like a one take thing, one microphone. You can hear like the room that she's in.
Yep.
It just sounds like you're in the room with her.
And it all adds to it, doesn't it?
Exactly. Versus if you were to professionally mic it up, put all this fucking reverb on it, whatever, it wouldn't have that same heartfelt, innocent vibe. And this kind of just has that. So going back to like the perfectionism and, technicality.
Yeah, absolutely.
This kind of just is just one of those things that's just like, don't change anything about it. Like, this is fucking awesome.
Personality over perfection.
Exactly.
Oh, that's how succinct and eloquent of you, Jake. That was very, very nice. So yeah, that's my honourable mention, SalvaTorchic.
Awesome.
Go and check her out on Bandcamp, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. I'll drop all the links in the description as usual, and we'll be doing a shout out on the socials as we normally do. Jerik, I believe you have a charity shout out for us this week.
Absolutely.
Or the equivalent of.
Yeah, it's an equivalent. So in Los Angeles, there is this restaurant / catering / group of people. I think they go under the restaurant name called The Park's Finest. They are staffed and ran by Filipinos, and they are very vocal about racial issues and social justice. Like last summer when I was out at a couple Black Lives Matter protests in downtown LA, they were there and holding up signs like Filipinos stand with the Black community, signs of that nature. And I was like, who are these people? And so I just, connected the dots later on. I believe it's run by John Eric and Christine Arakel Concordia. Or at least when I'm looking at this specific GoFundMe page, this GoFundMe page is called Feed the Frontliners. And what they have been doing throughout the pandemic, they have been, catering meals to frontline workers such as nurses at hospitals. And they've been doing this throughout the whole summer. They have this GoFundMe page that you can help donate so that they can keep doing Feed the Frontliners.
That's absolutely incredible.
Yeah.
Such important work at the moment as well.
Yeah.
I think we've shared quite a few charities that have been really focused on making sure that those in need and those working their hardest through this have been well looked after. And I think it's such an important aspect of us as a species getting through a pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely fantastic shout out.
Yeah,
and, we'll be sure to put a link to the GoFundMe in the description as well, so people can check out their work.
Absolutely. And lastly, they resonate with me because I'm Filipino too, and a giant majority of nurses in general are Filipino. So it's just kind of like throwing it back to Filipinos as much as I can.
No, absolutely.
Yeah. That's my charity.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
I had an idea. Jerik, I don't know how many episodes you've listened to, but we have this Dice of Destiny thing.
Yes, I remember the Dice of Destiny.
So I'm kind of thinking, as we have a guest here, Jake, that maybe the guest should decide what happens next week.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I love that
So rather
idea.
than rolling the dice, I can hear you with your dice in the microphone. Stop it.
I dropped one.
My God.
What are the options of it's like content creator,
sure.
content creator, musician?
Yeah, so what we have writer or journalist, animator or cartoonist, YouTuber or Twitch streamer, podcast or radio show, an artist from traditional mediums, digital or tattoo artists, or a wild card, so you can give us completely free reign.
Dude, the first thing that you said that caught my ear was a tattoo artist, but I don't know how difficult that would be for you guys, so I might cop out and say writer. I dare you to do a tattoo artist.
Okay. Jake, do you want to take the tattoo artist, or shall I?
I can take tattoo artist.
Okay. And Jerik, what would you like me to be doing?
Oh, okay. Do a Twitch streamer. That would be great. I think, and the only reason why I say that is because for some reason my YouTube algorithm keeps throwing me little clips of Sasha Gray's Twitch stream.
Oh, okay.
She seems like a really cool person. Like, I'd really love to have like a conversation with her.
Yeah, I do have a few in mind, actually.
Yeah,
That's
do a
interesting.
Twitch streamer.
Okay, thank you, guest, for picking the next thing that we do. That may or may not have worked as a replacement for the Dice of Destiny.
I mean,
we'll see.
I dropped a dice, so you got the sound.
Well, I actually remembered a dice, and I have my dice tower sat on my desk, so we were covered for that. Because I didn't really want to have to listen to you rattle the dice in my ear again. But you did it anyway, so,
Hey,
everybody loses.
I've moved past the meme soundboard at least.
Jerik, thank you very much for joining us for this episode.
Yeah,
It has been
thanks so much, mate.
absolute pleasure having you here. We're really, really grateful for everything that you've done for us. And thank you so much for giving your time and talking to us about all of this cool audio engineering stuff, which I am super into, and Jake has just been nodding along too.
It's my pleasure. You guys are doing great stuff, and I know the late night community, as myself, loves you guys, so keep it up. Anytime I can help, more than happy to.
Yeah, thank you everyone for listening. This has been our longest episode yet. We'll see how the edit comes out. We are recording this a little bit earlier in the week, so I do have more time, which, thank God.
More time to edit out the dice sounds.
So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. Stay safe, and we will catch you next week. Say goodbye, Jake.
Goodbye, Jake.
Fucking asshole. Say goodbye, Jerik.
Bye, everybody.
Creme de la Creator is produced by Grant Alexander and Jake Lane. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter and TikTok at CDLC Podcast, or email us at cdlcpodcast@gmail.com with your suggestions for creators you think we should feature in future episodes.
Stay safe and look after yourselves during lockdown. If you need to talk to someone, please reach out using one of the links provided in the episode description. See you next week.